So these are the top 3 things that I've learned about being a man throughout my life from my brother Casey. The first thing I want to go over is that you have to have an insanely high work ethic. And that could be with anything. You know, it doesn't matter what craft you pick, what job you have, or what you decide to do with your life. You have to have an insane, almost neurotic work ethic in order to be successful at it. So what I've personally seen through him, through myself, and through all of my friends is that the people that decide that they want to have work-life balance are the people who end up middle of the pack at things. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. It just all depends on what you decide to prioritize throughout your life. But what he's personally taught me is that if you want to really succeed at anything at all, you have to have an insane work ethic. So like, for example, when I was younger, I would see Casey roll out of bed and he would make his coffee and then he would immediately start his workday. And once he would just work for 10 hours straight. He would make his lunch and still be working. He'd be editing a video or, writing down notes from a video he was watching or a course he was going through. And he would literally just all day just work. And people would look at him like he was kind of psychotic. But what you'll realize is that everybody who's like uber successful at anything and they're really, really known for something, that's all they do. They roll out of bed and they work. And they work and they work some more. Every successful guy that you see on YouTube that makes millions of dollars, every uber rich person, the Elon Musks and the Jeff Bezoses of the world, all they do is they get out of bed and they think about, how can I further this business? How can I make more money? What are things I can do differently in order to be more successful? Which brings me to my second point, the second thing that Casey taught me. The second thing is that you have to always be evolving. So that means that you need to be upgrading your skill sets at all time. You have to be updating your belief sets at all time. What I've personally noticed out of men is that a lot of guys around the ages of like 22 to 30-ish, that's kind of when they go stagnant and they completely stop. So the reason that I think that this happens is because somewhere around 22 to 26, guys get out of college. And there's still a lot of guys that do go to college. They get out of college around 22 to 26 if they got a bachelor's or a master's. And they end up getting a girlfriend. And then they get married and they start a family. And that is just where they end up being for the rest of their life. That's where their skill set stops evolving. So like when they were in college, they woke up every day and they were learning new things. They went to class, and then they had homework, and then they had to study for their tests. They had to study for their quizzes. They were constantly thinking and learning and evolving in that way. To further it, they were going to parties and hanging out with friends. So socially, they were evolving too. They were learning new things. They were learning what makes people laugh. They were learning what women respond to, what makes women attracted to you. What things can I say that makes the girl like me? What things can I say that completely turns her off from me? And most guys that are in college were also broke. So they were constantly thinking about, how can I scrape more money in order to keep myself afloat? Because they have, between $0 and $1,000 in their bank account at all time. So guys go through like a really big period of growth from like the age of probably 15 when they go through puberty all the way up until like I said, somewhere between 22 and 30, depending on when they graduate college or like pick a career. And then they end up with a family and they end up with their job. And that's just kind of where they sit. They stop evolving. They stop growing their skill sets. So like with Casey, what I've seen is that year after year, he has found new ways to continue to evolve. He has worked with different mentors, bought different courses. He constantly, even to this day, I see him, he watches new YouTube videos to learn different things to, I guess, further his career and his career path and his dating life, so that way he can make more money and be more successful. Which rolls me into my third point. Casey doesn't care about what anybody thinks, and he has helped instill this into me personally. So what I've noticed is that Casey, from a young age, he never really had this blocker in his brain. Casey never really cared about what people thought of him, period. That's why he was the guy at 19 that like started his YouTube channel before YouTube, and like having an online business was a really big thing. And even though he would get weird looks and from his friends and people that he was talking to and his family, he never really feared that judgment because he wanted to be uber successful. And this is something that he's had to instill into me over the years. And it's one of the biggest things that I have personally learned from him. The people that I honestly think part of the reason that people become complacent in their life is because they fear judgment. You know, they're always thinking about, well, if I start that YouTube channel, you know, all of my friends and family are going to see it, or that girl from down the street that I like, she's going to see it, and what if she thinks I'm weird, or like, what if my family judges me for it? What if they think I'm a weird person because I decide that I want to make content and I want to start a business? And you have all these, guys have all of these limiting beliefs due to the judgment that they receive from others. But the problem is, a lot of people can't get over that mental block of just doing the thing that they know that they need to and want to do in the first place in order to be successful. And it's because they fear judgment. You know, they're told their whole life from their family and from their friends and from their girlfriends that you need to have work-life balance. You know, you need to go to college, and you need to get the engineering degree, and then you need to get a job at Bobcat, and you need to get married, and you need to have kids and settle down. You need to have the white picket fence, and you need to just have your house and your kids and well, settle down, not chase excellence anymore. And the problem with that is there's a lot of people, I think, that have dreams of doing more. You know, I want a family and I want kids, but on the other hand too, I'm also really young still, and I need to drive right now to be successful in my life. And so because of that, regardless of, you know, the thoughts that I have or that other guys have of like fear of judgment from other people and people thinking that you're weird, sometimes you just have to push past those things and do the thing that you know you need to do anyway. Now, the reason why Casey personally, I think, doesn't care about what anybody thinks is because he spent his whole life evolving. You know, he's always been pushing his skill sets further. He's always been trying to figure out what's the next big thing that I need to or can do in order to be more successful. And what I've personally found with that is like for example, on his YouTube videos, you know, sometimes I'll see in the comments, and this ties in with my second point too, but I'll see in the comments on some of his newer videos, you know, some guys will say like, Casey, you're saying this now, but you used to say this a couple of years ago. You're contradicting yourself. And I look at these comments and I'm like, well, obviously, you know, if you're always working to evolve and you don't, if you're always working to evolve in your life and update your skill set and your belief set, those things, your beliefs are going to differ through the years. You're not always going to say or believe the same thing. So that doesn't mean that the old information that he put out into the world was bad. It just means that at the time, that was what he knew to work. But because of that, that doesn't mean that the new skill sets that he's learning aren't a better way to do things. So like with dating, for example, there are things that work, But there's also better ways to do that exact same thing, which is why I think guys sometimes say to Casey, you're contradicting yourself. It's like, no, he's not contradicting himself. He's just learned new things because he's almost 30 now and you're watching a video from when he was 25. Me, for example, I'm 25 right now, and I think back to when I was 20, I'm way smarter and I have way more skills now at 25, as I should. You know, the guy that's always pushing to evolve, always update his belief set, his skill set, and doesn't fear judgment from the people around him, your beliefs are going to change throughout your life, and you're going to sometimes, quote unquote, contradict yourself because of it. So to recap, those are the top 3 things I learned from Casey. If you have an insane work ethic, you're always evolving, and you don't care what anybody thinks, there is absolutely no reason that you'll never create success in your life, because you're always going to be chasing excellence. You're always going to roll out of your bed and start your work day and just push and push and push until you get what you want. So if you guys like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Help boost me in the algorithm a little bit, and I'll see you in the next one.